Hello and welcome to this video. This video has been motivated by a few comments I've had on the channel regarding Rush's album Moving Pictures. And some poor misguided individuals have had the temerity to say that this album is not a prog album. And I have thought I don't want to do a video on this. You know, I've just done a video trying to argue that Pink Floyd are prog, right? And I don't want to do another one to try and argue that Rush is prog. But I thought I'd do a little video just to put this to bed. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the album Moving Pictures, not the band as a whole, but the album Moving Pictures. I'm going to run it through my progometer, which I'm firing up as we speak at the moment. And what the progometer does is it analyses that album on 10 criteria. Now, anyone who's put a comment in saying Rush Moving Pictures is a prog, I bet you haven't got a progometer, and I bet you haven't got 10 criteria. I have, and I'm going to run it through these 10 criteria, which are the 10 criteria that determine if something's prog, right? You guys love the progometer, and I get so many requests to use it on different bands, so I'm going to use it now on Rush's Moving Pictures. So it's just about fired up. So we have 10 criteria. Let's go through the first. So the first criteria is, does the album contain long-form compositions that use non-pop song structures and use different stylistic genre forms within that? And the answer, of course, is yes. We have on side 2 Camera, which is a 10-minute epic that does all that, so we get a big resounding tick for that one. Right, does it contain non-blues vocals affectations? It does. I think Rush, a band, very interesting, because in the early days you could hear Geddy Lee trying to ape that sort of Robert Plant style vocal, which has come from sort of the Robert Johnson, Howlin' Wolf school of blues singing. But by Moving Pictures, he has dropped his voice down and he's singing in a much more pronounced way where you can hear the lyrics. And this is really interesting because I think it's something that American progressive rock bands have a difficulty with, because they naturally sing in a much more rhythm and blues derived style. Rush being Canadian, I think there's a different cultural impetus behind what they do, and you hear it in Geddy's vocal sound, which for many people is like Marmite. If you're English people, you know what I mean by that. If not, you'll have to Google it. And so I would give him a big resounding score for hearing the guy singing without that sort of blues inflection, soul, rhythm and blues inflection in his voice. So I'm going to give him a score for that one. Right, literary allusions in the lyrics, without a doubt, and Rush do this so often, and I think they actually refer on Moving Pictures. I didn't know I was going to talk about it. There was a reference to a John Dos Passos book on there, so directly, yes, we get a big score for that. Conceptual continuity. I don't think there's conceptual continuity on Moving Pictures, unlike 2112, so I'm going to give that a 0. Okay, we're not going to get a score for that one. Integration of cutting-edge technology. Without a doubt, I think this is one of the things that upsets the prog fans when they hear this album, is that Rush, who were this classic rock power trio, as the 80s come in, they start to embrace technology, and Moving Pictures is the album where they really do that, fully realise the integration of digital recording technology and the integration of synthesis. Synthesizers, and then later on sampling, and you know, Rush are going to be so important in embracing this new technology that's coming in, so I'm going to give them a 1 for that, without a doubt. Next one, use of odd time signatures and obtuse timings. Who wrote this? Yes. Alright, the use of fantasy and sci-fi imagery in the album artwork and in the subject matter. Red Barchetta, without a doubt, and that pun, the Moving Pictures album cover pun, that's a pun. But if we look at the artwork in there, of course we can see sci-fi and fantasy imagery in there, so I'm going to give that a big yes. But I think Red Barchetta definitely gets us over the mark on that one. Musical complexity, instrumental virtuosity, yes. right? The use of improvisation to extend form. Well, there's improvisation on the album, there's solos. I'm pretty sure those solos are pretty structured. But if you listen to the opening of Witch Hunt, they have something that non-prog bands don't do, where they get this sort of vibe, and they just play with that vibe, and they open up, you know, exploring the sounds until they get to the song. That is a classic example of using improvisation to extend the form. It's something progressive rock bands do. It's something that pop bands don't do. We give them a score of 1 for that, right? This is a really difficult one, the last one. A lot of the British bands are just filled with this thing called the English aesthetic. Now, I think with Rush, the reason why Rush are the preeminent North American prog band, in other words, the US have never really been able to produce, in the 70s at least, a progressive rock band that vies with the British bands. Yes, Genesis, King Crimson, Pink Floyd, you know, all those bands. Rush are without doubt the greatest of the progressive rock bands to come out of continental America. I have to be really careful, because with nerdy prog fans watching this, as soon as I say they're American, they're going to go, they're not American, they're not American! Right, so I'm trying to just group them in the continent. No, if they're from Canada. No, I'm trying to group them in the continent of America. I'm trying to group all those bands together so I can talk about them as non-British bands. That's what I'm trying to do here. So these North American bands like Kansas and Styx, Utopia, I'm going to group those with Rush. You can't group them with Rush because Rush are America. Yeah, I know. I'm going to try and do that right now. I'm trying to do that now, just to make this point because I'm trying to make the very point. I'm trying to make the very point. No, stop with the comments. I'm trying to make the point. I'm trying to make the point here that Rush are different to those bands from the United States of America because of the Canadian culture. And I think that Canadian culture, I am not going to say that has come from the English aesthetic, but there's something similar within the Canadian culture. There is more self-effacement, more humour, more whimsy, more ability to be serious and yet not take yourself seriously, that I believe can only come from Britain. Oh my God, am I saying this right? I'm sure that's going to upset Canadians now. I'm basically going to upset the whole of you lot over the Atlantic. All of you lot are going to be upset like this. So basically, I feel that the things that I find in the English aesthetic, those sort of the nonsense humour, the love of landscape, the self-effacing humour, the surrealness, all that stuff I find in Rush, and I think it's the X factor that make them the greatest prog band from America. You're not from America! Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to award them 0.5 for English aesthetic. I would really, in my world, if I could just do it exactly how I want, I would give him a 1. Give him a 1, Andy. It's your video channel. You can do what you want. I can, can't I? Really, I could if I want. I think there's an argument that, you know, non-English bands can have the English aesthetic wound in them. I think Focus have that to a certain extent, and I think Rush does. Give him a 1. Yeah, you can't give him a 1. You'll just say that to make them sound like they're really prog, to beat us, because you just want to beat us and prove that Rush are prog. Yeah, I know, because Rush are prog and Moving Pictures is prog. That's why I'm doing this video. I'm giving them 1. Right, argue it in the comments. Come on, I'm ready. Come on. All you people, all you nerdy prog fans that are trying to argue to me that Rush is not prog on Moving Pictures, this video is for you. You don't understand, Andy. When I was 14 years old, I heard 2112, and when I heard that meandery epic about the bloke in the cave with the acoustic guitar discovering how to play some open chords, I was so enamoured with the band that I loved them completely. And then when the 1980s came along, they upset me deeply because they got their hair cut short and they started to make short songs with synthesizers on them, and I didn't like it. oh, this is a good video, isn't it? I'm glad I did it. I didn't expect to make this video. I'm just about to film another video this morning, and I thought I'm going to do a quick video on Rush. This is going to be a short video. It's not going to be one of my rambling hour-long epics. And because I've caught myself off guard, and because I'm all fired up, and because I see the absolute humour in progressive rock fans trying to argue that this album, full of songs about, you know, cars in the future and witch hunts in all these bizarre time signatures with all this virtuosity all over it with 10-minute long songs, you know, that this is not a prog album, right? What is a prog album in their book? I tell you what's a prog album in their book. Anything by Genesis that's got Peter Gabriel on it. That's a prog album, right? This is the bonkers thing that you get in the world of prog. The gatekeepers, the nerdy gatekeepers who love their boundaries, right? And they put them up and they just want to keep, you know, like some sort of, religious fundamentalists. They just want to keep pulling up the barriers until the only person left in their group is them. I'm prog and nothing else is prog. Only I'm prog. Genesis weren't proggy enough. Even when Peter Gabriel was in the band, they weren't prog enough, because in the future they knew that Peter Gabriel were left and they were aware of it when they made those albums, and that makes all those albums absolutely terrible. And all the Rush albums should be discounted. They should be burnt, because in the 80s they had mullets and they played pop songs with synthesizers on them, and I've never really got over it. So if we run them through the progometer, Rush moving pictures through the progometer, they score a whopping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that means, right, if I press the calculator on my progometer, that means that Moving Pictures by Rush is 90% prog. I did this yesterday for Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd, that made Dark Side of the Moon, that made Animals, and they came out 80% prog, right? Moving Pictures is 10% more prog than Pink Floyd. Get it in your head. Moving Pictures is a prog album, right? Anyone who said it's not a prog album should now be shamed. They will hang their heads in shame and go, why did I ever put this comment up on Andy's channel? Look what he's done. He's come along and absolutely, categorically disproved my point. I have, haven't I? I hope you enjoyed that rant about progressive rock. I love progressive rock. I think it's the best genre. You know, I came on this channel, I was talking a lot about jazz fusion, and as time's gone on and I've been listening to albums, I'm listening to lots of jazz fusion albums at the moment, listening to lots of progressive rock albums, I'm starting to find the majority of jazz fusion albums have just been self-indulgent, cliche, trotting out of the same old, you know, funky, you know, hooky riffs with some nice soloing that won't ruffle anybody's feathers. That's the majority of jazz fusion. You have to really search to find the heavy stuff. But prog is just full of wonderful, incredible, boundary-pushing, exploratory music. You know, it's an incredible form. Last night, I decided to put on Mars Volta's first album, Deloused in the Comatorium or whatever it's called, you know. I was a big fan of Mars Volta when they came out, but I haven't listened to them for 20 years. And I put this album on and I thought, this is undeniably a progressive rock album. It is so out there, it's so strange and weird, and they sold hundreds and thousands of albums, hundreds and thousands of albums. If you look at the following album, Francis and Me, I think it sold 500,000 records. This is incredible, that music that's so out there, right, can capture the general public's imagination in such large numbers. It really reaffirms my faith in humanity. That's what progressive rock does. And the fact that the powers that be still malign it to this day shows that the powers see it as being truly subversive. You know why it is? Because it's where normal people, normal working people, just the average person, aspire to something which is intellectual and above themselves. And the elites don't like that. They want to fence that off for themselves. You know, they don't want like teenage teenagers, you know, getting stoned and listen to progressive rock albums. They don't like that. It's still subversive to this day. You know, Roger Waters, how old is Roger Waters? Is he like 90 years old now? He's still upsetting people, coming out and saying all this stuff, and everyone's getting riled up. We haven't got anybody like that in the mainstream, except, you know, Sam Smith dressing himself up as Bully off Bullseye and, you know, playing the Brits and then dressing as a sort of a black, you know, DFS sofa. I mean, what does that mean? Sam, say something. Come out with something. Make some music that makes a statement, right? And then this won't just seem like hollow, you know, grandstanding to just get more fans, right? So as much as I probably disagree with most of what Roger Waters says, I will celebrate his ability to do so, because in the old days, music allowed you to do that on record, and then we have Dark Side of the Moon. And we have Moving Pictures by Rush, a huge, grand 1980s statement of progressive rock intellectual intent that sold about 10 million albums. Come on, prog fans, stop trying to exclude it from our club. Open your arms, let it in, let all this stuff in, you know, and people might just not be able to argue us down and stick us in a pigeonhole and say it's just a bunch of old guys listening to pretentious, self-indulgent music that should let go of it and go and get the latest album by Coldplay and just shut up. Right, I think I've done it. I think I've made my statement. If you liked this video, if you like Shouty Andy, then like it. And if you enjoyed my rant, then please put in the comments what you like about it. If you disagree, if you dare to come up with any counter argument to what I've said here, right? If you dare to do so, put it in the comments below. And remember, I am joking. This is called English humour. I'm joking, right? I'm just taking the mickey out of prog fans, which I am one. And when I did that little scenario of, you know, being a progressive rock fan and then Rush come out and they start playing the synthesizers with the mullets and you get all upset. That's me! That's me! It's me! Right? So, you know, let's have a little laugh at ourselves, right? And if you've enjoyed that, put it in the comments, whatever. If you want to see more stuff like this, then subscribe. All right. Sometimes I'll do very serious videos, and sometimes I'll do videos packed with lots of information, and sometimes I will just rant at the camera for 20 minutes, which is what you've seen today. And of course, if you really want to go deep down into what I do and go and lift all the rocks up and see what's under there, become a Patreon right now. I'm sitting in my studio and I'm freezing cold. I'm absolutely freezing cold because I can't afford a heater. You can make me warm. Prog fans, you can make me warm. All you have to do is become a Patreon. That's all you've got to do. And one day I'll be coming in here with my shirt off, chest out, big, quiet heater. I've got some heaters in the house, but they make a noise, and I don't want that on because people will go, "What's that noise in the background, Andy? There's a noise, you know." Oh, I'm so pleased that there's so many people out there that actually have an opinion about me, positive or negative. I love you all. I'm going now because this has been a strange video. Right, I think I've had too much coffee this morning. Let's get on to the next one. Thanks, bye. See you on the next one.